So I just wanted to do a quick follow-up video on this question of categories. It came to my mind, artificial intelligence. Those of you who are familiar with artificial intelligence, you know that there are algorithms designed to determine the existence of categories. And I think it's actually extraordinarily fascinating. I mean, this is really deep stuff. And so certainly we could say that there is some rigorous methodology out there now in the field of artificial intelligence. I think this is different from what we've been seeing from the psychologists. But I still want to stress, though, this is not the scientific method. So certainly, I think that we can invest a good amount of faith in the rigor of artificial intelligence algorithms. But it's still not the scientific method. So my critique has been on psychology and on science. My critique is not on artificial intelligence. However, scientists are starting to use artificial intelligence more and more. But here's the issue I have with it is they're claiming that they're doing science, and they're not. What they're doing is they're doing artificial intelligence, which is a far more advanced field, I think, than science is, actually. I have far more faith in artificial intelligence than I do in science. Right? It's math, right? It's not science. There's a difference. I mean, moreover, I guess we're talking about programming, and programming. Well, this particular area of programming is unique, but most of programming is a deductive science, which is not what science is. And I shouldn't say deductive science. I'm using that word poetically there, and now I'm sounding confusing by saying that. What I mean to say is, programming is an art that uses deduction almost exclusively. That's the whole idea of programming, is using logic. And logic is the same kind of thing that the great philosophers used. I mean, Aristotle wrote the first book in the history of the world on logic, the Organon by Aristotle. So I just want to point that out, that categorization is actually becoming a very hot field these days. It's a very interesting area to study because of artificial intelligence now. Artificial intelligence, they have two types of learning. You can do supervised learning or unsupervised learning. And unsupervised learning is what I'm really talking about, where you can present data to an artificial intelligence and it will determine the degree of similarity and difference. And by examining differences and similarities, it can draw categorical lines. I guess I'll say lines for now. You can see some of the graphs where they actually literally draw lines. So yeah, I just want to point out this distinction, because I think some people might be thinking to themselves, "Oh well, this is the defeated soul makes this claim that science is not that the examination of categories is not a scientific study, but it is because of artificial intelligence." Well, I guess my counter to that would be no, it's not. That's statistical analysis, perhaps, mathematical analysis, perhaps, but that's not science. It doesn't use a scientific method. In fact, what is very interesting about artificial intelligence is that you don't have to isolate two variables, the independent variable and the dependent variable. With artificial intelligence, you actually pour variables into it, and it can handle all that information. It's really extraordinarily interesting. It has to do more with what we call function approximation. Function approximation is when you are trying to determine a principle through trial and error, and that's really the essence of artificial intelligence. So again, this is not. I don't see how you could classify this as science. It doesn't fit into the model that they've been using for hundreds of years, and so I'm going to put forth the argument that still, these psychologists and these scientists are out of their realm when they make claims about categorization. Categories belongs to philosophy, and now I would say to this new field of artificial intelligence. Interestingly enough, artificial intelligence does emerge from neuroscience, right? So you might be like, well, this is getting a little bit that my argument may not hold, and maybe maybe there's a point to that actually. I will certainly consider that view. But when I look at what artificial intelligence does, the algorithms are, like I said, function approximators. That's not the same thing as isolating an independent variable and a dependent variable and trying to find a causal link. It's a bit of a different. It's a bit of a different study. It's really kind of advanced induction, you could say, or I think the more proper way to examine it would be to say it's a trial and error version of deduction. Actually, you're using a principle and seeing if that principle applies to particulars, and the principle is completely random, and you're just constantly approximating that principle until it creates conclusions that fit within the error rate in the artificial intelligence algorithm. So yeah, I think that's still not science and psychology. These psychologists are outside of their realm. The artificial intelligence programmers, now they I think are in fact maybe they should be the ones studying psychology, because the people who are doing artificial intelligence programming, I think they're far more on top of things than are the psychologists, and I think we might learn a great deal more from them than we ever will from psychology. Anyway, it was just an afterthought I wanted to add to that categorization question.